Picture America in the 1950s, a time when the open highway meant pure freedom and possibility. Back then, the Greyhound Scenicruiser wasn't just transportation, it was a rolling promise of comfort and adventure. With its signature panoramic windows, refreshing air conditioning, roomy seating, and sleek, unmistakable profile, it stood out as an icon of luxury travel. It felt like a first-class train car on wheels, inviting Americans to see their country in style. But behind that impressive exterior was a dramatic tale of engineering ambition that almost brought Greyhound to its knees. It was bold, innovative, and deeply flawed. In this story, we'll uncover the surprising truth about the Greyhound Scenicruiser, how a single bus design captured the nation's imagination, challenged drivers and mechanics alike, and became one of the most memorable and controversial symbols of America's golden age of travel. Buckle up for a journey through this unforgettable chapter of our highway history. Greyhound in the early 1950s wasn't content to be just another bus line. They wanted to embody the spirit of a modern, forward-looking America. With private cars becoming more affordable and air travel luring wealthier passengers, Greyhound knew they needed something dramatic to stand out. They dreamed of a bus so striking it would turn heads at every station and convince travelers to choose the highway over the skies. That's where the Greyhound Scenicruiser came in. This wasn't going to be your typical cramped, noisy coach. They envisioned it as nothing less than a hotel on wheels, stretching over 40 feet long with a unique deck-and-a-half design. Up front, an elevated observation area offered sweeping views of America's highways and landscapes through wide, wraparound windows. Inside, passengers would find plush seating, air conditioning that brought real relief on long summer trips, and even an onboard restroom, an unheard-of luxury for many travelers of the day. Greyhound wanted to create an experience, not just provide transportation. It was about making every journey feel like an adventure worth savoring, turning hours on the road into time well spent. The Greyhound Scenicruiser wasn't just a new bus. It was Greyhound's bold statement that even in an age of jets and cars, there was still something magical and very American about watching the country roll by from the comfort of a rolling palace. Turning that grand vision into reality meant Greyhound needed the very best. They turned to General Motors, the era's automotive giant, to engineer something unlike anything seen on American highways. But Greyhound didn't want just functional engineering. They wanted a design that would captivate. So they brought in the famed industrial designer Raymond Loewy, already celebrated for his work on sleek locomotives, classic cars, and even iconic consumer packaging. Loewy's touch was unmistakable. He understood that good design wasn't just about looks, it was about making people feel something. He set out to make the Greyhound Scenicruiser instantly recognizable. With its graceful lines, streamlined curves, and that unmistakable forward-leaning stance that suggested speed and modernity even when parked at the station. But the path wasn't smooth. The first prototype, known as GX1, was a true double-decker with panoramic seating up top. It looked incredible, but it was simply too tall. Greyhound's nationwide network of bus terminals and garages couldn't handle it. Imagine investing in your dream vehicle, only to realize it wouldn't even fit in your own garage. Undeterred, they went back to the drawing board. The result was GX2, featuring the revolutionary deck-and-a-half design. The front of the bus offered that elevated observation deck passengers craved, while the rear was lowered to ensure it cleared every terminal roof and maintenance bay in the country. It was a brilliant compromise, one that preserved the magic of sweeping views while ensuring it could actually serve riders from coast to coast. The GX2 wasn't just a prototype, it was the true blueprint for the Greyhound Scenicruiser America would come to know and remember. But for all its design brilliance, the Greyhound Scenicruiser carried with it an engineering gamble that would become legendary for all the wrong reasons. General Motors didn't yet have a diesel V8 engine suitable for buses ready to go into production. Faced with that gap, their engineers made a bold and risky decision. They installed two Detroit diesel four-cylinder engines side by side at the rear of the bus. On paper, this twin-engine setup seemed clever. Each engine was linked through a fluid coupling and fed power into a 3-speed manual transmission with a 2-speed splitter, giving drivers 6 forward gears to handle hills and highways. It was supposed to be flexible, powerful, and innovative, a real engineering marvel. But the reality was anything but easy. Those two engines had to stay in perfect sync at all times. If one ran even slightly out of phase with the other, the entire bus would shake and rattle, losing power, or worse, tearing up its own drivetrain. Drivers had to constantly double-clutch every single shift, an exhausting routine even for the most seasoned pros. And the complexity didn't stop there. The Scenicruiser used a single, centralized hydraulic system to power nearly everything: brakes, power steering, even the windshield wipers. It held over 7 gallons of fluid, pressurized up to 1,500 psi. While impressive on paper, it meant that one leak or failure could cripple multiple critical systems at once. In the shop, mechanics faced a nightmare of maintenance. It was a bus that looked like the future, but demanded far more skill, patience, and luck than anyone had bargained for. It didn't take long for the Greyhound Scenicruiser's ambitious engineering to reveal its dark side once these buses hit the road. Greyhound's garages simply weren't prepared for what they'd taken on. Mechanics, who'd spent their careers maintaining single-engine coaches, suddenly faced the bewildering challenge of keeping 2 engines running perfectly in sync. They lacked proper training, specialized tools, and perhaps most importantly, spare parts. Even minor repairs could turn into major headaches. Adjust one engine and risk knocking the other out of phase. The result? Many Scenicruisers ended up running with only half a heart, limping along on a single engine, while the other sat dead weight. In worse cases, both engines failed outright, leaving stranded passengers and frustrated drivers along America's highways. Breakdowns became so common that schedules fell apart. Riders who'd chosen Greyhound for reliability found themselves delayed for hours or forced to switch buses. Word spread quickly. This beautiful new flagship was starting to look like an embarrassment. Complaints poured in from coast to coast. For drivers, it was no picnic either. Double clutching through 6 gears on a long haul was tiring enough without worrying constantly about synchronizing 2 stubborn engines. Morale plummeted in depots and garages alike. Greyhound had staked its reputation on the Scenicruiser being the future of highway travel. Instead, it threatened to become a public relations disaster, a gleaming, modern promise that seemed impossible to keep once the rubber hit the road. Greyhound knew they couldn't let the Scenicruiser go down in history as a rolling fiasco. Facing mounting complaints, stalled schedules, and damage to their hard-won reputation, they took decisive action. What followed was one of the largest and most ambitious retrofit programs the American bus industry had ever seen. More than 1,000 Greyhound Scenicruisers were brought back to the shop for a complete mechanical transformation. The first major fix was that infamous twin-engine setup. Out went the two Detroit diesel 471 four-cylinders that had to stay perfectly in sync. In their place, Greyhound installed a single Detroit diesel 8V71 V8, a powerful, reliable engine with enough muscle to handle long interstate routes without the constant fear of failure. They didn't stop there. The complicated 3-speed manual transmission, with its 2-speed splitter, so notorious for requiring endless double clutching, was replaced by a simpler, more familiar 4-speed, non-synchronized gearbox. It was the kind of transmission drivers already knew, making their workday far less stressful and cutting down on costly errors. Greyhound also streamlined the central hydraulic system that had once powered everything from brakes to wipers with high-pressure fluid. By simplifying it, they cut maintenance headaches dramatically and made the coaches easier to service coast to coast. Thanks to these sweeping changes, the Greyhound Scenicruiser earned a second life on America's highways. Instead of being scrapped early, it stayed in service well into the mid-1970s, far beyond its original expected lifespan, carrying generations of travelers across the nation with renewed reliability and a promise finally fulfilled. Even with its engineering headaches and costly overhaul, the Greyhound Scenicruiser remained unmatched in the passenger experience it offered, a true first in American bus travel. Step aboard, and you'd find yourself in a world of comfort that put many trains and even airplanes of the day to shame. Up front, the elevated observation deck was the star attraction. Those big panoramic windows wrapped around the top level like a railcar dome, giving riders sweeping views of America's highways, mountains, and endless plains. Kids would race to snag those coveted front seats, watching the open road stretch on forever. Inside, Greyhound didn't cut corners. Seats were upholstered in durable, patterned fabric designed to hide stains and keep the coach looking clean, even after years of service. Spacious legroom and reclining backs made those long hauls much more bearable. Air conditioning was still a luxury in most cars back then, but here it was standard. Cool, even airflow circulating throughout the bus. Ventilation systems helped pull cigarette smoke away. This was the smoking era, after all, keeping the air surprisingly fresh for the time. And of course, the Scenicruiser featured something rare back then, an onboard restroom. No more begging the driver for unscheduled stops. Below, the large luggage bay swallowed up big suitcases with ease. On some premium routes, Greyhound even provided uniformed attendants, giving passengers the kind of service you'd expect from a mid-century airline. It wasn't just transportation. It was an experience designed to make every mile memorable. But the true legacy of the Greyhound Scenicruiser wasn't just in the memories of those who rode it. It was in how it forever changed American bus travel. Before the Scenicruiser, many coaches were little more than rolling boxes with hard seats and minimal amenities. This bus set a new standard for what passengers could and should expect on long journeys. Air conditioning wasn't an afterthought anymore. It became essential equipment, making travel bearable during those hot summer trips through the Southwest or Deep South. Onboard restrooms weren't just a luxury. They became a requirement for any serious intercity service. And that vast underfloor luggage bay, it redefined convenience for families moving across the country or college students hauling trunks of belongings. The Scenicruiser's influence didn't stop with Greyhound. Its striking design and innovative deck-and-a-half layout inspired future models, most famously the GMC Buffalo buses that followed in the late 1960s. You could see the Scenicruiser's DNA in every curve, and window of its successors. Yet even beyond its physical legacy, the Greyhound Scenicruiser lives on in the hearts of those who remember the golden age of highway travel. For many, it's a powerful symbol of freedom, possibility, and the simple joy of watching America roll by through panoramic glass. It wasn't perfect, but it was unforgettable. A true American original that still makes people smile when they remember the journeys it made possible. The Greyhound Scenicruiser stands as a vivid symbol of America's bold spirit, daring, imperfect, but unforgettable. It challenged drivers and mechanics, sure, but for passengers, it was a true land yacht that transformed long highways into journeys filled with wonder and possibility. Those sweeping windows, cool air conditioning, and plush seats offered a taste of luxury on wheels that many of us still remember fondly. Did you ever ride on a Greyhound Scenicruiser or see one gliding through your hometown? We'd love to hear your stories, memories, or family tales in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip back through American travel history, please like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you'll never miss more stories about the vehicles, roads, and people that helped shape our nation. Let's keep these memories alive and share them together.